To see all of you here. We're going to jump right in and get started. This is our fourth meeting for Raising Strong Readers, and we're going to be talking tonight about creating experiences to build background. And after our presentation, we're going to turn it over to Tammy Mosier, who's going to share some opportunities in the Angola community to get involved with Purdue Extensions, which is another great way to build background experiences for students. So I have Mrs. Crankshaw, Megan Crankshaw, with us this evening. She's a first grade teacher at Hendry Park Elementary School, and she'll be talking about some of the slides that we have to share with you this evening. You're welcome to just follow along with us, but if you want access to the slides we're sharing this evening, there's a QR code here and a link that you can type in on a tablet, computer, or phone to have access to all the slides that we're sharing. So I'm Jonathan Winslow, Director of Elementary Education at MSD of Steuben County, and I already introduced Megan Crankshaw. As we are going through the presentation, we'd love for you in the chat to put your name, the school that your children attend, and the grade level of your children. This is important because at the end, we're going to put your name into a drawing to win a gift card for this evening. We'll have two winners. So if you put your name, the school your children attend, and the grade level of your children in the chat, you'll be entered to win. You have to put that in the chat for us to be able to enter you, though. We're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to be talking tonight about knowledge and building background knowledge. So if you've attended one of our webinars in the past, you've seen this graphic. This is a graphic that our teachers are leaning on heavily as we learn more and more about how to support students in early reading and reading throughout their elementary, middle school, high school career. So there's two sides to this. It's called the reading rope. And one of those sides is the word recognition side. And that's all about students being able to pull words off of a page. Are they able to put letters together and sounds together to be able to read the words that are on the page? And those were the first two webinars we had together. We talked specifically about those areas. And now we're moving over to, we started in the last webinar by talking a little bit more about the language comprehension side of things and fluency. Tonight, we're going to really dig into the language comprehension side of things and talk about knowledge and the importance of building knowledge with students, because a lot of times we ask students to read books in class and at home that they don't have any knowledge about, and they have a really difficult time being able to understand the book because they don't have anything to connect to within that book. So we're going to share a little bit about what that means, and then Mrs. Crankshaw is going to share some practical ways we can help build knowledge at home as you work with students. We've also talked about this simple view of reading. This is another piece that our teachers are really leaning into. The overall goal of students reading is for them to be able to understand what they're reading, that reading comprehension. But if students aren't able to put the sounds together in words and read at a good speed, those three things we talked about in the last three webinars, comprehension doesn't happen. They have to have these three things of knowing how to read at a good speed, as well as what we're going to talk about tonight within comprehension, background knowledge, to get to that overall reading comprehension. As we move forward throughout the year, this year we'll talk about some more things within comprehension and vocabulary in our next month's activities. So there's two kinds of things that go into building background knowledge. The first one is activating background knowledge. So all students come to school knowing something about lots of different things. And in the classroom, we oftentimes have students that have lots of different experiences. Some have never been to a farm before. Some live on a farm and are very, very knowledgeable about what it takes to run a farm. And so it's important that we oftentimes look at what students already know and help them bring that to the forefront of their mind so that they can learn something new. So a lot of our time in the classroom is spent activating background knowledge, helping students think about the things that they already know about a topic so that we can add more information to it. So some things teachers might do before reading a book about ocean animals is they might ask, what might we see if we visited a beach at the ocean? And that helps students come up with ideas and start thinking about the ocean and what types of things that they might see there. Maybe we're about to read a book about ocean animals, and we ask students what types of animals live in the ocean so that they can start to think about and connect to previously learned things. And then what are different ways people explore the ocean? Might be a question we ask before reading to get them really thinking about different ways that we transport ourselves around the ocean. Now, something that's a little bit different from activating background knowledge is building background knowledge. And this is when students don't have a lot of knowledge about a particular thing, and we want to help them know more about it before reading about it in a text. So when we do this, we're really thinking about what are things kids need to know before they actually read the text so they can connect information to it. So in an upper grade, we might be reading about the civil rights movement. We might, to build some background knowledge, share stories of civil rights leaders. We might listen to speeches made by Martin Luther King Jr. and others. We might watch documentaries or short clips that provide information about that time period. So this is where we're really taking time to front load information for students so that as they read a book, they can understand the different experiences people in that time period might have had. This is a really big quote from a big science of reading researcher, Nell Duke, and she says, background knowledge is essential for reading comprehension. Put simply, the more you know about a topic, the easier it is to read a text, understand it, and retain information. So here's some of the things we do at school to develop background knowledge, to build it, and to activate it. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Crankshaw in just a moment to talk about ways that you can support that at home also. So at school, we develop meaningful field trips to build background knowledge around topics students learn in the classroom. So yes, field trips are fun, but that's not the only reason we do it. It's fun to get out and explore, but our field trips oftentimes are around a topic we're trying to build knowledge about. So a teacher might have a science topic of different animal life forms, and in the early grades, they might go to the zoo to really focus in on those life forms and learn more about those specific animals. We also do lots of before reading activities by sharing videos, photos, and experiences that all the class can see and experience so that they are ready to read that text and learn more about that information. And then we provide lots of student research opportunities so they can more deeply understand specific topics that we're reading about. So those are just a few of the things we do at school to build background knowledge, but I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Crankshaw to share some additional ways that you can help and support us at school in that partnership of supporting your child to build background knowledge as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. I just want to remind everyone, please in the chat, put your name, the school your child attends, and what grade level. I only have, I think, 3 people so far who've put their name in, so it's looking pretty good odds for those people getting a gift card. The most important thing that you can do as a parent is to have meaningful conversations. And I was listening to a podcast about this, and it was these 2 professors that have researched conversations, Sonia Cable and Trisha Zucker. And their kind of takeaway is strive for 5. So that means 5 interactions. So if you ask a question, your learner, your student, your child, niece or nephew, whoever you're speaking to responds, then you challenge. So say, you say, what did you learn in school today? We learned about dinosaurs. So then instead of just saying, okay, you challenge back. Oh, did you read a funny book, or what did you learn? They respond, no, we learned about Triceratops. And then you come back and expand on that. So, oh, tell me about a Triceratops, or Are they herbivores or carnivores? But striving for 5. So instead of having shallow conversations, making sure that you're having those deeper conversations, which are at least 5 exchanges. And you, in this time, there's so many things that you can build with that. You can expand on their knowledge. You can help them to kind of cement what they learned by repeating it. So really helping them to put it into their long-term memory. You can, if they have something that they're confused about, you can clear that up. Maybe you have to Google it. I say that all the time in class. I'm not sure. Let's look that up. So you're taking something that they have learned that they're interested in and making that deeper connection. It's also a fabulous way to develop their language. So if they say, if you ask them about dinosaurs and they say them are carnivores, you can say, oh, they are carnivores. So you can work on that language structure. There are just so many benefits to it. Then we talk about, okay, well, what are we going to talk about? And it really doesn't matter, anything that they're interested in. But the first one, it says current events, books, movies, or anything that sparks their curiosity. So current events, sometimes it's a little, I don't want to listen to the news, or I'm a little nervous about that. But I just looked up, and there are just a plethora of podcasts that are appropriate for kids that are on current events. So there's one called Kid News, KIDNUZ, the 10 News, ABC Kids News Time, and the Big Fib. So these are short podcasts that you can listen to. And I don't know about you, but frequently I feel like an Uber driver. So you're just in the car with your kids. This is a perfect time to listen to something short and just to build that knowledge, and then you can discuss it. Having them retell family stories. So this builds their ability to create language, to create writing. So when we're at school and we say we want to write about this, they can tell a story with beginning, middle, and end. Once they can tell that story, they can write that story. Writing helps their reading develop. So it all works together to make them stronger learners as a whole. And again, ask open-ended questions. What do you already know about this topic? How does this connect to what we learned before? You can kind of challenge them if they respond with something kind of shallow, like they're mad. Okay, well, why are they angry? So another opportunity to build vocabulary. But asking them more open-ended questions than, is it fun or not? Anything can be a learning opportunity. So grocery shopping, we have some kids who don't even go to the grocery store. Just being out with people, seeing different people, talking about where food comes from. Jonathan mentioned the farm, talking about that. Healthy eating habits, talk about how fresh vegetables are good for you. Cooking, having children cook with you allows them to understand that. You can talk about measurements and fractions and different cultural traditions through recipes. Nature walks, just going outside and observing plants and animals, asking them, what do you notice? Involve their 5 senses. What do you hear? What do you smell? That's also a good calming technique. Like, name 5 things that you can see, name 4 things that you can touch, name 3 things. I forget what order you go in. But like just noticing all those things through the 5 senses not only helps them to learn about their environment, but it is a good calming technique. Travel, if you are able to travel to places, researching those, looking up what they have to offer, and possibly visiting museums, libraries, and different cultural events. Those hands-on experiences are really great. And I was looking, for instance, our public library, their Facebook page, for one thing, it's Carnegie Public Library of Steuben. So that's for the one in Angola, if you're looking for it. But they offer so many things for kids, for teens, for adults. They have a winter reading program, like summer reading, but winter. I didn't even know that. They had escape rooms, painting, puzzles, like story times. So there's so many things that you can do in the community that are free. I know I work at Hendry Park. Our PTO had an art night planned for tonight. So following those kinds of community partners on social media is a great way to learn about those events where you can you can try those different things, and usually they're free. Any hobbies or interests that they have, support their children's passions, whatever it is that they like. So again, the library, obviously the main thing they have is books, but they also have computers with internet access, and we have a great website, Epic, that we use here that has tons of stories. You can look up any topic. So, using your library, if you need that to find books or to find websites where you can look into those things, there's a lot of resources there. Thank you. So I think frequently we think that once our children learn to read, that we don't need to read to them anymore. But I know I enjoy listening to audiobooks, and I can obviously read. I teach reading, but continuing that is really helpful. I know for first graders, our homework is to read or be read to for 15 minutes, and I usually get a lot of pushback from parents. They're like, "Oh, they don't want to read anymore," but I'm not reading to them. They're learning, but that's an essential part of learning to read, is hearing how things are supposed to sound, but it also just allows them to relax and enjoy and soak up that background knowledge, as opposed to, especially young readers or children who struggle with reading. They have to put so much effort into figuring out what the words are that it's difficult sometimes for them to just enjoy the story or to pick up what they're learning. So reading to a child of any age is a positive thing. Encourage curiosity about the world through informational books, documentaries, and websites. So, children sometimes are like, documentaries, yuck. But generally, once you get them to watch, they find it fascinating. And then listening to podcasts, audiobooks, or talk shows. I was just looking, if you look in like the podcast app on your phone and you search, there was a whole section that was kids and family. And I mean, there's like arts and science, but kids and family. And then it's broken down like by age group, or by like you can look at kids science, or the first one that came up, an attitude of gratitude. Like, how wonderful would that be to listen to a story about that? Then there were like public radio had one, science fiction. There was Familiar Friends with like Barbie and Frozen. So there's just all kinds of things that you can listen to broaden your horizons and broaden their horizons, and, come up with things for conversations. Another thing, playing language-rich games. So games like I Spy and 20 Questions, or trivia games. I know it's so easy once we're in the car to just give a kid a tablet or a phone. But getting them to notice the world around them is great. And again, you're developing that language. You're just helping them to learn about, their vocabulary and all those kinds of things. Playing board games. Teaching a child how to lose is very important. So not only does it support that language skills, but it just teaches them how to be a good person, a good student. So those kinds of things. It also helps them with strategic thinking and that conversation again. And finally, Alexia, if you've been on the previous ones, I know that we have talked a lot about this. This is a wonderful program. And usually we think about it in terms of building those foundational skills, because it does work a lot with phonological awareness, phonics, and those kinds of, language structure. But they are organized into topics. So there is an element of building that background knowledge within Core 5. So it's a really great program. We're excited to have it. I'm noticing it in my classroom where my students are picking things up and they're like, oh, I learned that on Lexia. So it's really a great program that can teach them more than just those foundational skills.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Crenshaw. So strong background knowledge leads to many different things. It will reinforce improved reading comprehension. As we talked about earlier, students can more easily decode, understand, and retain information if they have that prior knowledge about the topic. There's a really famous study And it talks about how they took two groups of students, that were poor readers and students that had a really, really good handle on reading. And within those groups, there were students that knew a lot about baseball. And so they gave students a text that was around baseball, and students that were considered poor readers performed better on comprehension questions than students who were considered proficient readers that didn't know a lot about baseball. And so it's a really interesting study that shows why that background knowledge is so important and why it's important for us to continually be teaching students different things about the world around them. It also is going to increase their vocabulary. It's going to enhance their critical thinking skills because they'll be able to take in that information and really synthesize it and have more effective communication around it. And overall, there's just going to be greater academic achievement because they know more about the world that they're interacting with around them. I'm just going to share some additional resources outside of what Megan shared with you that can really support building or activating background knowledge. This website has virtual field trips that are no-cost ways to explore and learn. So this is something that students could pull up on their Chromebook, you could pull up on your phone or whatever device you have at home, and it's going to build that background knowledge. And here's the website. It's a discovery education website. And as you scroll down, you're going to see all of the different virtual field trips that are available. They're constantly adding more. So here's one that comes out on February 19th, but there's several on demand that are already ready. And so they're set up as there's a video series that takes you through different parts of these places. And some of them also have like a 360 version, so you can kind of scroll around and look at the different places that might be included on that virtual field trip. They're constantly adding more, so it's really exciting to see the different things that they're adding in places. Another place that is really helpful for resources is the Indiana Learning Lab. Those of you that have been to some of our previous webinars or workshops have probably heard about the Indiana Learning Lab. It's a great place for teachers, but it's also a great place for families. This was developed by the Indiana Department of Education, and they now have a caregiver tab within the Learning Lab. So you can fill out your information here or just click at this login with Google if you have a Google account. And when you do that, I'm going to go ahead and log in so you can see it. You're going to be able to see up here at the top, there's a Hubs menu. And when you click there, there's a Parent and Family Support Hub. And once you go into this, it's going to break down different age groups of children. And so if you've got a birth to second grader, a third through fifth grader, you can click on any of these options based on the children that you are working with in your home. And when you click inside, there's also going to be a breakdown of different subject areas or just overall well-being or just different parent resources. So you could click on the math, for example, and there's going to be resources here that you can click on that will support your child in math. Sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's an article. There's lots of different options here. You can use this link here, inlearninglab.com, or this QR code to access that information and create that account. That is all for this evening on our side of things. We thank you so much for joining. We're going to turn it over to Tammy Mosier in just a second to share a little bit of information from Purdue Extensions. Continue adding your name, your child's grade level, and school to the chat. We'll be selecting that winner at the very end after we hear from Tammy Mosier. I'm also in the chat going to be putting a link to a feedback form for this evening so that you can fill that out and help us continue to make this helpful and better for you every evening. So our next meeting will be on February 18th. I'll be sending calendar invites out to all of you that have signed up for that, and we'll be talking about vocabulary. All right, Tammy Mosier, it is all yours. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for the warm welcome on this chilly day. I am Tammy Mosier, and I work for Purdue Extension here in Steuben County. So a lot of people hear Purdue and they think that I'm driving from West Lafayette. I am not. I get to live, work, and play right here alongside of all of you in Steuben County, Indiana. Purdue University is the land-grant institution in the state of Indiana. And so basically what that means is it is our job through federal legislation to take university research to local people. So that's really easy to comprehend when we think about like big ag or even like throughout the lifespan in health issues. But for youth development, it's a little bit different. So it is still taking university research to the local people, but we're doing it in a manner that meets kids where kids are. So I serve as the 4-H Youth Development Extension Educator here in our county. People hear that title and they hear 4-H and they stop there and they think, oh, I know what that is. It's all about livestock and animals at a county fair. That is not the case. It is the case, but it's so much more than that. And so that's kind of what I want to talk to you all about tonight. So I serve youth in grades K through 12 and even some college students. In K through 2, our focus is primarily on literacy. So the same thing that you all are speaking about this evening, and building confidence in a young person. When I think about grades 3 through 6, we're really focusing on belonging and mastery. So these background skills that Mrs. Crankshaw was talking about, it's mastering some of those topics that are really interesting to your student. And then when we get into those upper grades like 7 through 12, our focus really pivots to leadership, generosity, and independence. And so basically it's my job to throughout adolescence work on skill building at all of those different age levels, and to not replace the classroom, but really to supplement the classroom. So the best way I can explain it to you is like if you have a child that you know like, oh, they are going to be a vet someday, like they love animals and they're really into anatomy and all of these things, we would say great, like we welcome that even in like 2nd grade. But you're not going to be able to learn how to be a vet as a 2nd grader in the public school system. But we can certainly, as the 4-H program and in youth development, kind of cater to that interest and that need for more background information in veterinary medicine, for example. So we build character. We really help kids with public speaking and especially self-articulation in the lower grades that we see represented here in the chat in elementary school. Almost everything that we do is hands-on education. And so I am going to present my screen if I can do that. Let's see. Okay, maybe I need to do window. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to share this with you. Hopefully you all can see this. So this is a model that I use all the time when I'm teaching, specifically parents and volunteers, so that they understand how we're teaching kids. So in general, the research shows that kids retain 20% of what they hear only. So that's being talked to or talked at. They retain 30% of what they see only. So maybe what they're reading or what they're seeing on television, something like that. 50% of what they see and hear. And then the numbers just keep increasing. So 70% of what they hear, see, and then say, so articulate back, kind of like Mrs. Crankshaw's the 5, those 5 interactions. So when they're really engaging with that, they're going to retain 70%. And then where 4-H and youth development come in with Purdue Extension is this 90%. So we're talking with them, we're showing them, they're talking back or reflecting on that, and then we're actually doing it. So it's all about hands-on education here at Purdue Extension. And so we really pride ourselves on that. Hopefully all of your students in elementary school anyway. Oh, it's not seeing this. Okay. Do you still see faces? You still see the faces, I think. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, hopefully all of your students took home one of these documents. To wait for it. Here it comes. I think. Oh, it says I can't share. Let me try again. But anyway, we sent home documents earlier in the year, actually shortly before Christmas, for all the elementary school students in the county, so they could engage with Purdue Extension in the 4-H program. So you can't see it, but basically the document talks about the benefits of being in the 4-H program and what all we have to offer. And so kids in 4-H compared to their peers who are equally engaged in school are 4 times more likely to give back to their communities. They are 2 times more likely to make healthier choices, and they are 2 times more likely to participate in STEM activities. So really honing in on some of those skills that we hope to see in adulthood. We're working on early with 4-H members. So we have a lot of opportunities. We take kids on trips. We think it's really important for kids to see the world beyond their hometown. And so that might be just a county or 2 away, or it might be a state away. And so we definitely want to encourage that. That's mainly for our older kids, but we do have some opportunities for our younger kids as well. As far as participation goes, I personally think we are inexpensive. For just $20 a year, kids can participate in 4-H. That is grades 3 through 12. Kindergarten through 2nd grade is only $5 annually. We have different meetings where we get together. So a lot of times it's kids from other schools that are convening in one place. So we might have kids from Fremont and Prairie Heights and Angola all in one location so that they can have sort of, forced interaction, I guess I'll say, to meet one another and learn about one another and their interests. We call those club meetings. Club is kind of an old term, but that's what they're called still today. And so basically, again, we're just really trying to supplement what is happening at school and engage youth in the topics that are very interesting to them. And so if I could have shared this with you, you would have seen all of the topics that we offer for grades K through 2. And I can share this with Jonathan too, if it's easier to send that out or something. But I mean, it's a variety. So we do have the animal projects, just like a lot of you are probably familiar with, like pigs and cows, things like that. But we also engage young people in things like entomology, which is the study of insects. A lot of elementary kids love picking up worms and playing with insects. And so we can engage them in that. We have things like Legos and construction toys where they're learning some engineering design process skills, even in kindergarten. And so everything is very intentional. It's not just willy-nilly for fun. It feels like fun for the kids that are in it, but that's really a disguise for learning. And so just like Mrs. Crankshaw was saying, like going to the grocery store, that's sort of a disguise for learning too. Like we think we're just going to the grocery store, but we're actually going to learn while we're there. And so we do that here in the 4-H program as well. So that was like a 30,000 foot view. But I'm happy to take questions. It looks like my face is frozen on my screen. So I don't know if you all can even see me, but I see head shaking, so I think you can hear me.
We can hear you, but we can't see you now. So
Okay.
yeah, if you have questions, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. And then Tammy, if you don't mind sharing that with me via email, I can share out to the list that's signed up tonight so that everybody has that graphic that you were trying to share.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
So yeah, happy to take questions about involvement or some of the topic areas that we have or how it happens. Whatever questions you might have.
All right. Well, if there aren't any, we are going to wrap up by choosing our winner of the gift card. I think Tammy will stay on for just a moment. If questions do appear in the chat, we'll go ahead and have her answer those. But it looks like she also put her email in the chat, so you're welcome to reach out to her that way also. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then we're going to turn it over to Mrs. Crankshaw to share her screen and choose our winners for this evening. So just a moment while I stop the recording.